My name is Hannah Wells, and I never thought that a perfectly normal day could turn into something that would change my life forever. I'm 34 years old, a pediatric nurse in Denver, Colorado, living a life that felt predictable and routine. I woke up on October 17th, 2023, to a crisp fall morning, with the golden leaves fluttering outside my window like something out of a painting. My day started like any other. I brewed my coffee, packed my bag, and got ready for another long shift at the hospital. Life felt full, but looking back now, I realize how much I was simply going through the motions. My faith was quiet, a background element in my life. I attended church when I could, whispered occasional prayers, and believed in God. But He felt distant, something I thought I could reach for when I had time. That morning, I was running a little late, so I grabbed my car keys and hurried out the door, unaware that it would be a day I would never forget. As I drove down the familiar stretch of Highway 36, the sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of pink and orange. The radio hummed softly in the background, playing an old hymn I hadn't heard in years, something about grace that felt strangely comforting. I remember sighing, mentally running through my to-do list for the day, checking vitals, managing medications, and helping my tiny patients fight their battles. I didn't notice the black semi-truck coming toward me until it was too late. The impact was sudden, violent, and unlike anything I'd ever experienced. In one moment, my car was swallowed by the roar of twisting metal and shattering glass. I remember the blinding flash of headlights and the sickening thud that rattled through my bones. Then, silence. A silence so complete it felt like the entire world had stopped spinning. The pain, the noise, the chaos, all of it vanished in an instant. What happened next is something I can only describe as stepping into the most profound peace I had ever known. It wasn't an ending, but a beginning, one that would open my eyes to a reality far greater than I had ever imagined. The instant the crash ended, I felt something strange. There was no pain, no confusion, just an overwhelming sense of peace. Suddenly, I realized I was no longer in my car. Instead, I was floating above the wreckage, looking down at the mangled remains of my vehicle. It was surreal to see my body still slumped against the steering wheel, the airbag deployed, and smoke rising from the engine. Paramedics were arriving, moving quickly as they assessed the scene, their voices calm but urgent. I saw a young paramedic crouched beside me, shouting instructions while another rushed to set up the stretcher. Yet, from where I hovered, all of this felt distant, like I was watching a scene in a movie. For a moment, I was struck by how small and fragile my physical form looked, as though it was just a shell I had shed. I felt no fear, no panic, only a strange lightness, as if a burden I didn't even know I had been carrying had been lifted from me. My thoughts were clear, sharper than they had ever been before. I could see every detail: the leaves scattered on the road, the paramedics' muddy boots, the shattered glass glittering like tiny diamonds in the sunlight. Time felt different here, stretched and unhurried, and it was as if I could perceive everything at once. Then, something shifted. I felt a gentle pull, a tugging that wasn't physical but spiritual, drawing me upward. It was subtle at first, like being carried on a soft breeze, but it soon grew stronger. I turned my gaze from the scene below and realized that a light was appearing in the distance. It wasn't an ordinary light. It was radiant, alive, and full of warmth. It called to me, filling me with a deep sense of longing and love. As I moved closer to it, the world I had known began to fade. The sirens, the shouting voices, the broken glass, it all dissolved, replaced by a stillness I cannot fully explain. I knew, without anyone telling me, that I was leaving behind everything familiar: my pain, my worries, my plans. And yet, I wasn't afraid. In that moment, I understood one undeniable truth. I wasn't alone. I was being guided, drawn towards something or someone that felt more real than anything I had ever known. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew with complete certainty that I was safe. As I moved toward the radiant light, I felt a sense of awe unlike anything I had ever experienced. The light wasn't just something I could see. It was alive. It pulsed with warmth, love, and an energy that filled me with peace, washing away every fear or doubt I had ever carried. Then, out of that brilliance, figures began to emerge, beings of light, unlike anything I had seen or imagined before. These were not the cherubic angels from paintings or stained glass windows. They were powerful, majestic, and radiant, their forms shifting like living light. Their presence carried both peace and authority, as if they were warriors and protectors all at once. The first angel approached me, and though it didn't speak with words, I understood it perfectly. Its voice resonated in my heart, in my mind, as a pure transfer of thought. "Welcome, Amelia," it said, calling me by name. "You are safe, and you are loved. There are things you must see and understand." I felt no fear, only overwhelming love and familiarity, as though I had known this being my entire life, but had forgotten until now. More angels appeared around me, their movements graceful and deliberate. I realized they had been with me all along, watching, guiding, and protecting me in ways I had never noticed. One angel gestured toward the scene I had left behind. I turned and saw my body still in the car, surrounded by paramedics desperately trying to save me. I saw the traffic building, strangers praying silently as they passed by, and my mother being notified of the accident through a phone call. My heart ached for her, but an angel's voice reassured me. She is not alone. We are with her, just as we are with you. The angel who seemed to lead the group extended its radiant hand, and suddenly the world around us shifted. It was as though a curtain had been pulled back, revealing layers of reality that I had never perceived before. I could see Earth, not as it appears to human eyes, but as it exists in the spiritual realm. I saw angels standing guard over homes, hospitals, and schools. I watched as they fought against shadows, dark, twisted forces that moved with an eerie, unnatural slither. These shadows weren't just darkness, they were alive, dripping with malice and intent on destruction. I gasped as I saw a battle unfolding, a silent but ferocious conflict. Angels, radiant and unyielding, pushed back against these forces of darkness with beams of light that seemed to emanate from their very being. They fought not with swords or weapons, but with truth, love, and divine authority. The darkness recoiled at their presence, powerless to overcome the purity of their light. "You are seeing the unseen," the angel explained. "This is the battle that rages every moment, though few humans perceive it. We fight for you, protecting, guiding, and defending, but your prayers, your faith, and your choices have power here. You partner with us in ways you cannot yet comprehend." Tears welled in my eyes as I witnessed the depth of this unseen war. I realized how much I had taken for granted, how unaware I had been of the spiritual forces working tirelessly to shield and guide me. The angels didn't just protect me, they celebrated moments of kindness, faith, and love that humans often overlooked. I saw flashes of my own life, times when I had narrowly avoided danger, moments of inexplicable peace during chaos, and instances when I had been inspired to help someone. "We were with you then," the angel said, its voice full of love, "and we are with you now." The angel's words filled me with both gratitude and humility. I had never considered how interconnected the physical and spiritual worlds truly were. I looked back at the angels, their brilliance more vibrant than ever, and understood one profound truth. We are never alone. Even when we feel abandoned or unseen, these heavenly beings are by our side, working tirelessly for our good. The angel turned to me once more and said, "Amelia, you have been shown this because you have a purpose. What comes next will reveal even more." With that, the light around us began to shift again, and I felt myself being pulled towards something even greater, something that would change me forever. The light began to shift again, and suddenly I found myself no longer floating in the brilliance, but standing within a scene that made my heart pound. I was on Earth, yet not as I had ever seen it before. Everything seemed familiar: cities, homes, streets, and people. But layered upon it was a new dimension of reality. It was as if the veil separating the spiritual and physical worlds had been torn away, revealing the true state of things. Around me, angels stood tall like sentinels of light, their radiant forms guarding homes, hospitals, and individuals walking the streets. Their brilliance was pure and steady, and as I watched them, I noticed something that sent chills down my spine. Shadows. Dark and swirling, slinking across the ground and creeping toward people. These shadows weren't just darkness, they were alive, malicious, and unrelenting. I watched as an angel shielded a young boy walking home from school. The darkness had drawn near, whispering lies, thoughts of fear, inadequacy, and hopelessness, trying to pull him into despair. But the angel stood firm, its light pushing back the darkness until it recoiled and slithered away. Another scene unfolded before me, a man sitting alone in his car, contemplating ending his life. A shadow coiled around him like a serpent, feeding his hopelessness. But in that moment, an angel placed its hand on the man's shoulder, and the man's tears fell as he suddenly felt hope surge through his heart. These battles happen constantly, the angel beside me explained. Darkness seeks to claim hearts, twist minds, and separate humanity from God. But we fight on their behalf, and every act of faith, prayer, and kindness strengthens our ability to push back. I saw spiritual battles happening in homes, families arguing, parents overwhelmed by stress, and children being pulled into darkness through screens, addictions, and fear. But for every shadow, there was an angel standing close, radiating light and whispering words of encouragement and hope into their hearts. I was struck by how real these battles were. They weren't confined to grand moments of life and death. They played out in the small, mundane details of daily life, in our choices, our thoughts, and our relationships. How can we fight this darkness? I asked, my voice trembling. The angel turned toward me, its face both serious and kind. You fight by partnering with us, through prayer, through faith, and through acts of love. Every time a person chooses kindness over cruelty, forgiveness over bitterness, or truth over lies, they invite more light into the world. They strengthen us in this battle. The angel's words cut deep into my heart. I had lived so unaware of the role I could play, of the power I carried through my own choices and prayers. But what about those who feel too weak? I asked. What if they can't see the light? The angel extended its hand, and I saw another vision. A woman on her knees, tears streaming down her face, praying for her struggling child. Around her, angels gathered, their light growing brighter with every word of her prayer. When you pray, the angel said, it moves heaven and earth. Even the weakest whisper of a prayer is heard and responded to. Your faith is a weapon, and God's light cannot be overcome. I watched in awe as the darkness trembled before the power of prayer and faith. Suddenly, everything seemed so clear. The world isn't just what we see. There is an eternal, unseen battle happening all around us, and every single person has a part to play. The scene shifted once more, and I found myself standing in a city square. The world looked ordinary, but something was terribly wrong. People walked with their heads down, faces illuminated by the glow of screens, phones, tablets, and devices that seemed to hold their complete attention. It was as though they were in a trance, disconnected from the real world and oblivious to the darkness surrounding them. I turned to the angel beside me, and it pointed toward the devices. Technology was meant to be a tool, it said, but now it has become a trap. The enemy uses it to distract, isolate, and enslave. As I looked closer, I saw dark chains extending from the screens, wrapping around people's wrists, necks, and hearts. Words glowed faintly on the chains: comparison, addiction, anxiety, pride, distraction. The chains seemed to grow tighter with every moment, yet no one noticed. People smiled, laughed, and scrolled as though everything was fine, even as the darkness surrounded them. The enemy is clever, the angel continued. He doesn't use obvious evil. He uses what seems harmless, convenience, entertainment, and connection, to slowly pull people away from God. They do not realize they are trading their freedom for chains. The weight of the angel's words hit me like a stone. I thought of how many hours I had spent scrolling mindlessly, feeling empty and anxious afterward. How many people around me were caught in this same web? What can be done? I asked desperately. Awareness, the angel replied. People must wake up. They must learn to use technology as a tool, not allow it to master them. Time spent in God's presence, in prayer, and in His Word is the antidote to this poison. Teach them to see through the deception and return to what is real. As the angel spoke, I saw another vision. Families putting down their devices, parents reading the Bible to their children, and friends talking and laughing without distractions. I saw peace return to their lives, their chains breaking as they chose faith and connection over isolation. The final vision was one of hope and preparation. I saw groups of people, families, churches, and communities coming together to pray, worship, and support one another. These weren't just casual gatherings, they were intentional and urgent, as though they knew they were preparing for something greater. The angel spoke with a sense of urgency. The time to prepare is now. Tell them to strengthen their faith, to build communities of support, and to live differently from the world. The coming days will test many, but those who stand firm in God will not be overcome. I saw practical ways people were preparing, learning to grow food, building relationships with their neighbors, and studying the Bible deeply so they could recognize truth from lies. I saw children being taught to pray and worship, their faith shining brightly like lights in the darkness. They must be ready, the angel said, not with fear but with faith, for God will provide for His people and strengthen them for what lies ahead. The angel turned to me, its light surrounding me like a protective shield. Amelia, it said, you must share what you have seen. The world needs to know that they are not alone, that heaven fights for them, and that God's love is stronger than any darkness. I felt myself being pulled back, the visions fading as I returned to my earthly body. The last thing I heard was the angel's voice, full of love and power. Speak boldly. Help them see. Help them prepare. I gasped for air as I woke up in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses. Tears filled my eyes as I realized I had been given a second chance, a chance to share the truth and live with purpose. My heart was overflowing with gratitude and a deep sense of urgency. Since that day, I've shared my story with anyone who will listen. I've seen the impact it has, especially on those who feel lost, distracted, or overwhelmed. My message is simple: we are not alone. Angels fight for us, God's love surrounds us, and every choice we make matters in the spiritual battle that rages unseen. If you are reading this, I believe it's no accident. God wants you to hear this message. Wake up. Pay attention. Pray. Strengthen your faith, protect your family, and live intentionally for God. Put down your distractions and focus on what truly matters. The unseen world is real, but so is God's victory. If we choose faith, prayer, and love, we will not be overcome. In the end, what I witnessed was not just a warning, but a message of hope. God's love is unshakable, His angels fight for us, and His victory is assured. Choose Him. Choose the light. And remember, No matter how dark the world may seem, you are never alone. Heaven stands with you, now and always.